Brought to you by WikiVidi Documentaries. Whitney Houston. Whitney Elizabeth Houston was an American singer, actress, producer, and model. In 2009, Guinness World Records cited her as the most awarded female act of all time. Houston is one of pop music's best-selling music artists of all time, with an estimated 170 to 200 million records sold worldwide. She released 7 studio albums and 2 soundtrack albums, all of which have diamond, multi-platinum, platinum, or gold certification. Houston's crossover appeal on the popular music charts, as well as her prominence on MTV, starting with her video for How Will I Know, influenced several African-American women artists who follow in her footsteps. Houston is the only artist to chart 7 consecutive #1 Billboard Hot 100 songs. She is the second artist behind Elton John and the only woman to have 2 #1 Billboard 200 album awards on the Billboard magazine year-end charts. Houston's debut album, Whitney Houston, became the best-selling debut album by a woman in history. Rolling Stone named it the best album of 1986, and ranked it at number 254 on the magazine's list of the 500 greatest albums of all time. Her second studio album, Whitney, became the first album by a woman to debut at #1 on the Billboard 200 Albums chart. Houston's first acting role was as the star of the feature film The Bodyguard. The film's original soundtrack won the 1994 Grammy Award for Album of the Year. Its lead single, I Will Always Love You, won the Grammy Award for Record of the Year, and became the best-selling single by a woman in music history. With the album, Houston became the first act to sell more than 1 million copies of an album within a single-week period under Nielsen's SoundScan system. The album makes her the top female act in the top 10 list of the best-selling albums of all time. At #4, Houston continued to star in movies and contribute to their soundtracks, including the films Waiting to Exhale and The Preacher's Wife. The Preacher's Wife soundtrack became the best-selling gospel album in history. On February 11, 2012, Houston was found dead in her guest room at the Beverly Hilton, in Beverly Hills, California. The official coroner's report showed that she had accidentally drowned in the bathtub, with heart disease and cocaine use listed as contributing factors. News of her death coincided with the 2012 Grammy Awards and featured prominently in American and international media. 1963 to 1984, early life and career beginnings. Whitney Houston was born on August 9, 1963 in what was then a middle-income neighborhood in Newark, New Jersey. She was the daughter of Army serviceman and entertainment executive John Russell Houston, Jr., and gospel singer Emily "Sissy" Houston. Her elder brother Michael is a singer, and her elder half-brother is former basketball player Gary Garland. Her parents were both African American. Through her mother, Houston was a first cousin of singers Dionne Warwick and Dee Dee Warwick. Her godmother was Darlene Love and her honorary aunt was Aretha Franklin, whom she met at age 8 or 9 when her mother took her to a recording studio. Houston was raised a Baptist, but was also exposed to the Pentecostal church. After the 1967 Newark riots, the family moved to a middle-class area in East Orange, New Jersey, when she was 4. At the age of 11, Houston started performing as a soloist in the junior gospel choir at the New Hope Baptist Church in Newark, where she also learned to play the piano. Her first solo performance in the church was, Guide Me, O Thou Great Jehovah. When Houston was a teenager, she attended Mount St. Dominic Academy, a Catholic girls' high school in Caldwell, New Jersey, where she met her best friend Robin Crawford, whom she described as the sister she never had. While Houston was still in school, her mother continued to teach her how to sing. Houston was also exposed to the music of Chaka Khan, Gladys Knight, and Roberta Flack, most of whom would have an influence on her as a singer and performer. Houston spent some of her teenage years touring nightclubs where her mother Cissy was performing, and she would occasionally get on stage and perform with her. In 1977, at age 14, she became a backup singer on the Michael Zager Band's single, Life's a Party. In 1978, at age 15, Houston sang background vocals for Chaka Khan and Lou Rawls. In the early 1980s, Houston started working as a fashion model after a photographer saw her at Carnegie Hall singing with her mother. She appeared in 17 and became one of the first women of color to grace the cover of the magazine. She was also featured in layouts in the pages of Glamour, Cosmopolitan, A Young Miss, and appeared in a Canada Dry soft drink TV commercial. Her looks and girl next door charm made her one of the most sought-after teen models of the time. While modeling, she continued her burgeoning recording career by working with producers Michael Beinhorn, Bill Laswell, and Martin Bissey on an album they were spearheading called One Down, which was credited to the group material. For the project, Houston contributed the ballad, Memories, a cover of a song by Hugh Hopper of Soft Machine. Robert Christgau of The Village Voice called her contribution one of the most gorgeous ballads you've ever heard. She also appeared as a lead vocalist on one track on the Paul Jabara album, entitled Paul Jabara and Friends, released by Columbia Records in 1983. Houston had previously been offered several recording agencies, but her mother declined the offers, stating her daughter must first complete high school. In 1983, Jerry Griffith, an A&R representative from Arista Records, saw her performing with her mother in a New York City nightclub and was impressed. He convinced Arista's head Clive Davis to make time to see Houston perform. Davis was impressed, and immediately offered a worldwide recording contract which Houston signed. Later that year, she made her national televised debut alongside Davis on The Merv Griffin Show. Houston signed with Arista in 1983, but did not begin work on her album immediately. The label wanted to make sure no other label signed the singer away. Davis wanted to ensure he had the right material and producers for Houston's debut album. Some producers had to pass on the project because of prior commitments. Houston first recorded a duet with Teddy Pendergrass entitled Hold Me, which appeared on his album Love Language. The single was released in 1984 and gave Houston her first taste of success, becoming a top 5 R&B hit. It would also appear on her debut album in 1985. 1985 1986 Rise to international prominence. With production from Michael Massa, Kashif, Jermaine Jackson, and Narada Michael Walden. Houston's debut album Whitney Houston was released in February 1985. Rolling Stone magazine praised Houston, calling her one of the most exciting new voices in years, while the New York Times called the album an impressive, musically conservative showcase for an exceptional vocal talent. Arista Records promoted Houston's album with 3 different singles from the album in the US, UK, and other European countries. In the UK, the dance funk, Someone for Me, which failed to chart in the country, was the first single, while All at Once was in such European countries as the Netherlands and Belgium, where the song reached the top 5 on the singles charts, respectively. In the US, the soulful ballad, "You Give Good Love," was chosen as the lead single from Houston's debut, to establish her in the black marketplace first. Outside the US, the song failed to get enough attention to become a hit, but in the US, it gave the album its first major hit as it peaked at number 3 on the US Billboard Hot 100 chart, and number 1 on the Hot R&B chart. As a result, the album began to sell strongly, and Houston continued promotion by touring nightclubs in the US. She also began performing on late-night television talk shows, which were not usually accessible to unestablished black acts. The jazzy ballad, "Saving All My Love for You," was released next, and it would become Houston's first #1 single in both the US and the UK. She was then an opening act for singer Jeffrey Osborne on his nationwide tour. "Thinking About You" was released as the promo single only to R&B-oriented radio stations, which peaked at number 10 on the US R&B chart. At the time, MTV had received harsh criticism for not playing enough videos by Black, Latino, and other racial minorities while favoring white acts. The third US single, "How Will I Know," peaked at number 1, and the video introduced Houston to the MTV audience. Houston's subsequent singles from this, and future albums, would make her the first African-American woman to receive consistent heavy rotation on MTV. By 1986, a year after its initial release, Whitney Houston topped the Billboard 200 Albums chart, and stayed there for 14 non-consecutive weeks. The final single, "Greatest Love of All," a cover of "The Greatest Love of All," originally recorded by George Benson in 1977, became Houston's biggest hit at the time after peaking number 1 and remaining there for 3 weeks on the Hot 100 chart, which made her debut the first album by a woman to yield 3 #1 hits. Houston was #1 Artist of the Year, and Whitney Houston was the #1 Album of the Year on the 1986 Billboard year-end charts, making her the first woman to earn that distinction. At the time, Houston released the best-selling debut album by a solo artist. Houston then embarked on her world tour, Greatest Love Tour. The album had become an international success, and was certified 13 times platinum in the United States alone, and has sold 25 million copies worldwide. At the 1986 Grammy Awards, Houston was nominated for 3 awards including Album of the Year. She was not eligible for the Best New Artist category, because of her previous hit R&B duet recording with Teddy Pendergrass in 1984. She won her first Grammy Award for Best Pop Vocal Performance Female for "Saving All My Love for You." Houston's performance of the song during the Grammy telecast later earned her an Emmy Award for Outstanding Individual Performance in a Variety Music Program. Houston won 7 American Music Awards in total in 1986 and 1987, and an MTV Video Music Award. The album's popularity would also carry over to the 1987 Grammy Awards when "Greatest Love of All" would receive a Record of the Year nomination. 10 years after the original recording of "The Greatest Love of All" by George Benson, which was the main theme of the boxer Muhammad Ali biopic, The Greatest, in 1977. Houston's debut album is listed as one of Rolling Stone's 500 greatest albums of all time, and on the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame's definitive 200 list. Houston's grand entrance into the music industry is considered one of the 25 musical milestones of the last 25 years, according to USA Today. Following Houston's breakthrough, doors were opened for other African American women such as Janet Jackson and Anita Baker to find notable success in popular music and on MTV. 1987 to 1991, Whitney, I'm Your Baby Tonight and The Star-Spangled Banner. With many expectations, Houston's second album, Whitney, was released in June 1987. The album again featured production from Massa, Kashif and Walden as well as Jelly Bean Benitez. Many critics complained that the material was too similar to her previous album. Rolling Stone said, "The narrow channel through which this talent has been directed is frustrating." Still, the album enjoyed commercial success. Houston became the first woman in music history to debut at number 1 on the Billboard 200 Albums chart, and the first artist to enter the albums chart at number 1 in both the US and UK, while also hitting number 1 or top 10 in dozens of other countries around the world. The album's first single, I Wanna Dance with Somebody, was also a massive hit worldwide, peaking at number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100 chart, and topping the singles chart in many countries such as Australia, Germany and the UK. The next 3 singles, Didn't We Almost Have It All, So Emotional, and Where Do Broken Hearts Go?, all peaked at number 1 on the US Hot 100 chart, which gave her a total of 7 consecutive number 1 hits, breaking the record of 6 previously shared by the Beatles and the Bee Gees. Houston became the first woman to generate 4 number 1 singles from one album. Whitney has been certified 9 times platinum in the US for shipments of over 9 million copies, and has sold a total of 20 million copies worldwide. At the 30th Grammy Awards in 1988, Houston was nominated for 3 awards, including Album of the Year, winning her second Grammy for Best Female Pop Vocal Performance for I Wanna Dance with Somebody. Houston also won 2 American Music Awards in 1988 and 1989, respectively, and a Soul Train Music Award. Following the release of the album, Houston embarked on the Moment of Truth World Tour, which was one of the 10 highest-grossing concert tours of 1987. The success of the tours during 1986-87 and her 2 studio albums ranked Houston number 8 for the highest-earning entertainers list according to Forbes magazine. She was the highest-earning African-American woman overall, and the 3rd highest entertainer after Bill Cosby and Eddie Murphy. Houston was a supporter of Nelson Mandela and the anti-apartheid movement. During her modeling days, the singer refused to work with any agencies who did business with the then-apartheid South Africa. On June 11, 1988, during the European leg of her tour, Houston joined other musicians to perform a set at Wembley Stadium in London to celebrate a then-imprisoned Nelson Mandela's 70th birthday. Over 72,000 people attended Wembley Stadium, and over 1 billion people tuned in worldwide as the rock concert raised over $1 million for charities while bringing awareness to apartheid. Houston then flew back to the U.S. for a concert at Madison Square Garden in New York City in August. The show was a benefit concert that raised $250,000 for the United Negro College Fund. In the same year, she recorded a song for NBC's coverage of the 1988 Summer Olympics, One Moment in Time, which became a top 5 hit in the US, while reaching number 1 in the UK and Germany. With her world tour continuing overseas, Houston was still one of the top 20 highest-earning entertainers for 1987-88 according to Forbes magazine. In 1989, Houston formed the Whitney Houston Foundation for Children, a non-profit organization that has raised funds for the needs of children around the world. The organization cares for homelessness, children with cancer or AIDS, and other issues of self-empowerment. With the success of her first 2 albums, Houston was undoubtedly an international crossover superstar, the most prominent since Michael Jackson, appealing to all demographics. However, some black critics believed she was selling out. They felt her singing on record lacked the soul that was present during her live concerts. At the 1989 Soul Train Music Awards, when Houston's name was called out for a nomination, a few in the audience jeered. Houston defended herself against the criticism, stating, "If you're gonna have a long career, there's a certain way to do it. And I did it that way. I'm not ashamed of it." Houston took a more urban direction with her third studio album, I'm Your Baby Tonight, released in November 1990. She produced and chose producers for this album, and as a result, it featured production and collaborations with L.A. Reid and Babyface, Luther Vandross, and Stevie Wonder. The album showed Houston's versatility on a new batch of tough rhythmic grooves, soulful ballads, and up-tempo dance tracks. Reviews were mixed. Rolling Stone felt it was her best and most integrated album, while Entertainment Weekly at the time thought Houston's shift towards an urban direction was superficial. The album contained several hits. The first two singles, I'm Your Baby Tonight and All the Man That I Need, peaked at number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100 chart. Miracle peaked at number 9. My Name Is Not Susan peaked in the top 20. I Belong to You reached the top 10 of the US R&B chart and garnered Houston a Grammy nomination. And the sixth single, the Stevie Wonder duet, We Didn't Know, reached the R&B top 20. The album peaked at number 3 on the Billboard 200 and went on to be certified 4 times platinum in the US while selling 12 million total worldwide. In 1990, Houston was the spokesperson for a youth leadership conference hosted in Washington, D.C. She had a private audience with President George H.W. Bush in the Oval Office to discuss the associated challenges. During the Persian Gulf War, Houston performed the Star-Spangled Banner at Super Bowl 25 at Tampa Stadium on January 27, 1991. This performance was later reported by those involved in the performance to have been lip-synced or to have been sung into a dead microphone while a studio recording previously made by Houston was played. Dan Claus, a spokesman for Houston, explained, "This is not a Milli Vanilli thing. She sang live, but the microphone was turned off. It was a technical decision, partially based on the noise factor. This is standard procedure." At these events, a commercial single and video of her performance were released and reached the top 20 on the US Hot 100, making her the only act to turn the US national anthem into a pop hit of that magnitude. Houston donated all her share of the proceeds to the American Red Cross Gulf Crisis Fund. As a result, the singer was named to the Red Cross Board of Governors. Her rendition was critically acclaimed and is considered the benchmark for singers. Rolling Stone commented that, "Her singing stirs such strong patriotism. Unforgettable." And the performance ranked number 1 on the 25 most memorable music moments in NFL history list. VH1 listed the performance as one of the greatest moments that rocked TV. Following the attacks on 9/11, it was released again by Arista Records. All profits going towards the firefighters and victims of the attacks. This time it peaked at number 6 in the Hot 100 and was certified platinum by the Recording Industry Association of America. Later in 1991, Houston put together her Welcome Home Heroes concert with HBO for the soldiers fighting in the Persian Gulf War and their families. The free concert took place at Naval Station Norfolk in Norfolk, Virginia, in front of 3,500 servicemen and women, HBO scrambled the concert so that it was free for everyone to watch. Houston's concert gave HBO its highest ratings ever. She then embarked on the I'm Your Baby Tonight World Tour. 1992 to 1994, Marriage, Motherhood, and The Bodyguard. Throughout the 1980s, Houston was romantically linked to American football star Randall Cunningham and actor Eddie Murphy. She then met R&B singer Bobby Brown at the 1989 Soul Train Music Awards. After a 3-year courtship, the two were married on July 18, 1992. On March 4, 1993, Houston gave birth to their daughter Bobby Christina, the couple's only child. Braun would go on to have several run-ins with the law, including some jail time. With the commercial success of her albums, movie offers poured in, including offers to work with Robert De Niro, Quincy Jones, and Spike Lee, but Houston did not feel the time was right. Houston's first film role was in The Bodyguard, released in 1992 and co-starring Kevin Costner. Houston played Rachel Marin, a star who is stalked by a crazed fan and hires a bodyguard to protect her. USA Today listed it as one of the 25 most memorable movie moments of the last 25 years in 2007. Houston's mainstream appeal allowed people to look at the movie colorblind. However, controversy arose as some felt the film's advertising intentionally hid Houston's face to hide the film's interracial relationship. In an interview with Rolling Stone in 1993, the singer commented that, "People know who Whitney Houston is, I'm black. You can't hide that fact." Houston received a Razzie Award nomination for Worst Actress. The Washington Post said Houston is doing nothing more than playing Houston. Comes out largely unscathed if that is possible in so cockamamie an undertaking. And the New York Times commented that she lacked passion with her co-star. Despite the film's mixed reviews, it was hugely successful at the box office, grossing more than $121 million in the US and $410 million worldwide, making it one of the top 100 grossing films in film history at its time of release. Though it is no longer in the top 100, because of rising ticket prices since the time the film was released. The film's soundtrack also enjoyed big success. Houston executive produced and contributed 6 songs for the motion picture's adjoining soundtrack album. Rolling Stone said it is nothing more than pleasant, tasteful and urbane. The soundtrack's lead single was "I Will Always Love You," written and originally recorded by Dolly Parton in 1974. Houston's version of the song was acclaimed by many critics, regarding it as her signature song or iconic performance. Rolling Stone and USA Today called her rendition the tour de force. The single peaked at number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100 for a then record-breaking 14 weeks, number 1 on the R&B chart for a then record-breaking 11 weeks, and number 1 on the adult contemporary charts for 5 weeks. The single was certified 4 times platinum by the RIAA, making Houston the first woman with a single to reach that level in the RIAA history and becoming the best-selling single by a woman in the US. The song also became a global success, hitting number 1 in almost all countries, and the best-selling single of all time by a female solo artist with 20 million copies sold. The soundtrack topped the Billboard 200 chart and remained there for 20 non-consecutive weeks, the longest tenure by any Arista album on the chart in the Nielsen SoundScan era, and became one of the fastest-selling albums ever. During Christmas week of 1992, the soundtrack sold over 1 million copies within a week, becoming the first album to achieve that feat under Nielsen's SoundScan system, with the follow-up singles, I'm Every Woman, A Shaka Can't Cover, and I Have Nothing, both reaching the top 5. Houston became the first woman to ever have 3 singles in the top 11 simultaneously. The album was certified 17 times platinum in the US alone, with worldwide sales of 44 million, making The Bodyguard the biggest-selling album by a female act on the list of the world's top 10 best-selling albums, topping Shania Twain's 40 million sold for Come On Over. Houston won 3 Grammys for the album in 1994, including 2 of the Academy's highest honors, Album of the Year and Record of the Year. In addition, she won a record 8 American Music Awards at that year's ceremony, including the Award of Merit, 11 Billboard Music Awards, 3 Soul Train Music Awards in 1993-94, including Sammy Davis Jr. Award as Entertainer of the Year, 5 NAACP Image Awards including Entertainer of the Year, a record 5 World Music Awards, and a Brit Award. Following the success of the project, Houston embarked on another expansive global tour, the Bodyguard World Tour, in 1993-94. Her concerts, movie, and recording grosses made her the 3rd highest-earning female entertainer of 1993-94, just behind Oprah Winfrey and Barbra Streisand according to Forbes magazine. Houston placed in the top 5 of Entertainment Weekly's annual Entertainer of the Year ranking, and was labeled by Premiere magazine as one of the 100 most powerful people in Hollywood. In October 1994, Houston attended and performed at a state dinner in the White House honoring newly elected South African President Nelson Mandela. At the end of her world tour, Houston performed 3 concerts in South Africa to honor President Mandela, playing to over 200,000 people. This would make the singer the first major musician to visit the newly unified and apartheid-free nation following Mandela's winning election. The concert was broadcast live on HBO, with funds of the concerts being donated to various charities in South Africa. The event was considered the nation's biggest media event since the inauguration of Nelson Mandela. Thank you for watching. Brought to you by WikiVidi Documentaries. Please like and subscribe below. Please like and subscribe below.